Testing, testing, testing. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're excited that so many of you could join us today for On Our Love of Movie Sequels from the 80s and 90s. I'm Pele Shalev, the Public Events Specialist here at the California Institute of Integral Studies, a nonprofit university on the unceded lands of the Ramaytush Ohlone, also known as San Francisco, and which they call Yelamu. In the Ramaytush Ohlone language, Yelamu identifies both the people and the territory. It is so lovely to see those of you who are gathered here in the room and to share space with all of those who are joining us online and watching this conversation from all over the world. As a representative of CIIS, I want to express our debt and gratitude to the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original peoples and continual caretakers of Yelamu, which are the people and the territory of the San Francisco Peninsula. This acknowledgement is only a single small step towards being in deeper connection and relationship with Indigenous tribes and organizations in our community. If you're joining us online, I invite you to call out in the chat where you're calling from. To learn more, we recommend the website native-land.ca as a starting resource. Now, before we start, I'd like to cover a few troubleshooting items. We will have a live Q&A after the conversation tonight. Since this is a hybrid event, we have a hybrid Q&A process so that our online and in-person guests all have the same chance to participate. Those of you who are here in the room will find QR codes linking to the Q&A form in each seat. Online, you'll find that link in the event description below this video. Our presenters will be able to see questions from there at the end of the event, and we will try to get to as many as we can. For those of you that are online, chat will be enabled during this event, but please note that it is not being moderated, and our presenters cannot see the chat. If you choose to participate in chat, please be respectful and avoid language that could be offensive or insensitive to others. You can turn the chat off at any time, and we encourage you to do so if you find it negatively impacts your experience in any way. Now, let me introduce our presenters, Emily Marinelli and DDS Dobson-Smith, and we'll get right to the conversation. DDS, yeah. DDS Dobson-Smith is a guiding presence in the landscape of mental health and activism as a beacon of compassion and scholarly rigor. With over 3 decades of corporate experience and an extensive academic background, they stand out as a thought leader whose professional journey intertwines with their profound commitment to personal authenticity and social justice. Their work, which encompasses a dynamic range of subjects, is informed by a deep understanding of human psychology and a passion for fostering environments where individuals can thrive as their truest selves. It is deeply resonant with the need for societal shift and acceptance, and is a testament to the power of embracing one's multifaceted identity to effect change within oneself as well as the broader community. M. Marinelli is a genderqueer, queer femme Virgo, psychotherapist, professor, and writer. Originally from Oklahoma, they now split time between California and Vermont. Their essays have appeared in the Blue Rose magazine, Film Obsessive, and TV Obsessive, and they host the Twin Peaks Tattoo podcast. When not participating in conversations at CIIS, you'd likely find them cuddling with their rescue pup Radish and watching Grease 2. Now, let me turn it over to M. Marinelli and DDS Dobson-Smith.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hi, it's so good to see you. Did everyone who's here physically get a slap bracelet when you came in? Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Those of you at home who don't have slap bracelets, I'm really sorry, but I encourage you to get one for yourself because they just bring joy and nostalgia, which are a lot of topics that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start by asking all of you just for you to think about What is something that is comforting for you from when you were younger as a kid? So for me, it's pop culture. So a TV show, music, a movie, something that brought you comfort, joy, you could count on. Anything popping into mind? Something? Someone who's here want to holler it out? Brave soul. Books. Great. Anyone in particular? Romance novels. I love it. Danielle Steele. Danielle Steele. Steals our hearts every time. Love it. Anyone else? Falcor. Never ending story. Falcor. Absolutely. Not to upsell merch, but we do have both stickers and temporary tattoos of Falcor that my friend Morgan drew. Cute. Love it. Anyone else? One more nostalgic moment? You can't do that on television where you could get slimed and Alanis Morissette was there. Fantastic. So thinking about and conjuring and bringing in today, like what brought you comfort when you were little? And that's what this book is about, comfort sequels for me. So I'm going to, look at me just taking over DDS. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it. I'm going to read a little bit of the introduction of the book because it will show you, first of all, how cute is this cover? Can you even deal with how cute this is? So the book will take you into, I think, and bring you into the immersion that was for me what these sequels provided and continue to provide, especially Grease 2, which obviously I have a poster of front and center. Never leave home without it. Introduction, back to school again. I promise this isn't long. Sweetie, are you sure you want to watch it again? My single mom, working 12-hour days to make ends meet, cannot fathom my desire to view Grease 2 yet again. As soon as she picks me up from school, I beg her to put it on. 6th grade is not nearly as exciting as the return of the T-Birds and the Pink Ladies. I wait patiently all day at Carver Middle School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the hopes of returning in the evening to the school of my dreams, Rydell High. Yes, Mama, I need to watch it one more time. I'm learning the Back to School Again dance number, and I have to get all the moves right. And the tiny living room that doubled as a dining room in the house we are renting couldn't contain my Pink Lady spirit. 4 small dining chairs surround a Formica table, adjacent to a brown, dilapidated couch right out of Roseanne. The largest piece in the room is the entertainment center, a thrift store find which takes up an entire wall. This is where I spend most of my time. My mom, still dressed in Kmart high heels and a shoulder-padded navy suit with bejeweled buttons down the front, laughs and slides the tape into the gray and black Panasonic VHS player. My grubby fingers, sticky with my after-school snack of Easy Cheese and Ritz crackers, delicious, turn the dials on the TV to find the channel that will allow the movie to play. Remember when you had to do that? The VHS FBI warning comes into focus. Large, scary blue letters hover above the Department of Justice seal. I show off by closing my eyes and reciting it word for word from memory. Federal law provides severe civil and criminal penalties for the unauthorized reproduction, distribution, and exhibition. Great job, honey. That's impressive. My mom praises my ability to remember the disclaimer and leaves to start dinner before going back to grading papers. I set up the dining chairs in a line to denote different parts of the Grease 2 opening credit spectacular. 2 chairs create the semblance of a pink Studebaker I can sit atop, like Sharon, Maureen Teefy, during the Pink Ladies pledge. Chair number 3 is for my T-Bird motorcycle entrance segment. While not critical to the choreography, the 4th chair has no real purpose, except that it allows me to jump from a height for dramatic effect in the middle of the room. The most challenging part of the almost 7-minute Back to School Again opening number is the various micro-dialogue character introductions. For these, I have to be creative. While holding a geography textbook, I poke my head through a gap window in the entertainment center, creating a makeshift school bus, just like Frenchie, Didi Khan. Tiny pom-poms from my Skipper doll, who's the younger sister to Barbie, remember her, work great for my impressions of the twin cheerleaders. And I use my mom's Aquanets to spray my hair just like Miss Mason, Connie Stephen, does to her bouffant hairdo. The whole scene would not be complete unless I'm chewing gum in a too cool for school way. The winter fresh hangs on my mouth's edge and it drips down to my chin. I smack it back quickly while pretending not to notice or care how others perceive me. Back to School Again explodes onto the screen with fantastical colors and synchronized dancing. This song tells the relatable story of a summer vacation ending too soon and the bummer of starting fall classes. The opening song lyrics begin, spending my vacation in the summer sun. You can sing if you know it. Getting lots of action, having lots of fun. Scoring like a bandit till the bubble burst. Suddenly it got to be September 1st. September sneaks up out of nowhere and Rydell students don't want to go back. The Board of Education took away my parole. The lyrics are not completely appropriate for kids. But hey, I'm 12 after all, and I've heard much worse. I do the twist, the swim, and the pony with the students of Rydell while working hard to not accidentally swallow my gum on a grapevine turn. My sticky and now sweaty fingers fumble with the VCR buttons to get the choreography just right. Pause, rewind, pause, rewind, pause, fast forward. I can feel my mom's gentle tolerance from the kitchen as she tells me, honey, let's start putting your things away and set the table for dinner. Huffing and puffing from the 60s dance move repetitions, I yell out, but Mom, I really need to get this ending down. Here it goes. I weave in and out between the chairs theatrically, run in place as the music holds. Whoa, whoa, I gotta go back to school, and execute a shoulder somersault right as the song blasts. Again, bam. Studebaker chairs 1 and 2 crash to the ground. The winter fresh in a perfect ball propels from my mouth onto the TV screen just as my mom comes in holding our casserole dinners. Nailed it. Just in time for tuna. That's the beginning. So you see right away how important Grease 2 is and was for me in my life, and how it provided comfort and how I wanted to be involved in it. So I hope that gives you a taste of what this book is about.
I feel like what we could do is just have a conversation about Grease 2 because of our shared appreciation of it. So this is now the Grease 2 talk. I hope you all enjoy.
That's fine with me.
And before we get going, I want to say a couple of things. First, I just love you.
I love you too.
And thank you for asking me to be here. I don't know about you, but when Em Marinelli calls and asks a question, they don't need to finish the question before you say yes. And I was like, yes, what is the request? And then when it was to come and talk with you and with your fans about this, then it was a double yes. And it's a real full circle moment for me because I have such a lot of gratitude in my heart for you, because many, many years ago when I was a student in your class, we were doing an independent study together. The product of that class was a manuscript for my first book. So this feels like such a full circle moment for you, and I wouldn't be here without you. Some of those lovely words that Pele said about me before I started wouldn't have been possible to be said without you. You know, I am not me without you. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
I mean that from all of my heart.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, wow. We've prepared a bunch of questions that those of you that have been in class with me know that we may not get to them. But I guess where I want to start in this conversation about Grease 2 is, I mean, truly, how did you choose which sequels to put into this book? Because quite frankly, where's Gremlins 2?
I know, it's such a big question. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Can I see a show of hands? How many folks have seen Gremlins 2, the new batch? And you have to say the new batch. Any sequel that has then like a subtitle, you have to say the whole thing. So just a few of you. So Gremlins 2, the new batch, is actually one of the greatest sequels of all time because of its ability to self-mock, and it doesn't take itself seriously, and it breaks the fourth wall, and Hulk Hogan is in it, and it's a bunch of Key and Peele do an incredible sketch where has anyone seen the Key and Peele sketch? It's golden. What are you doing? Go watch that right now. No, stay here. But you have to see it because it really does. It's like there's a bat gremlin and there's an electricity gremlin. It's like, what's happening here with all the gremlins? The Gremlins 2 chapter was the first chapter that I wrote because I love it so much. And then as I kept writing the book, I realized that I wasn't writing a book about pop culture critique and psychology. I was also writing a memoir. And so the book took a different turn that I followed. And I'm really glad that I followed it. And then when the book was pretty much done, I went back to the Gremlins 2 chapter and it didn't fit anymore. And I tried to make it fit, but it's like that thing that happens in art where it's like you're trying too hard and it's not working, and then you just have to kind of leave it and come back. And I feel like I might come back to it. Maybe in Comfort Sequels 2, the sequel to the sequel book. I'm just saying, I don't know. We'll see.
Newsflash.
But it is a noticeably left out sequel, but it's a wonderful, wonderful sequel.
So this memoir, I agree, it is a wonderful sequel.
Yeah.
I particularly like the gremlin with the lipstick on.
I'm Gremlina.
I see so much of me in her.
Yes,
Yeah.
Gremlina.
Yeah, Gremlina.
Yeah, my tattoo artist has her drawn up. I'm going to get her
Fabulous.
tattooed because you can't, I mean, it's Gremlina.
Fabulous.
She's wonderful.
So I'm already going to ask a question that's not on our
Perfect.
question list.
I
Is
want
that okay?
that. Yeah.
Okay. So it became a memoir.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you? First of all, realizing that it's a memoir and then allowing it to be a memoir.
That's such a great question. I resisted it because I pitched it to my publisher as not a memoir. So I thought, oh, I can trickle memoir pieces in, but I can't really make it a memoir. And then I was attending these nonfiction workshops, and every time I would bring in a memoir aspect, they were like, more of that.
Wow.
And my creative writing partner, who's also here, shout out Bowie, also was like, girl, lean into that.
Mhm.
That's what's so good. And so when I wrote Batman Returns chapter, which Batman Returns is fabulous, I started off writing about when I dressed up as Catwoman in a Walmart all-in-one bag Catwoman costume that you could get, and doing a trampoline routine in honor of Michelle Pfeiffer. That was to the song Black Cat, which is not related to Batman Returns, but had to be that particular song. And
Janet Jackson, Black Cat?
Janet Jackson.
Yes.
Janet Jackson, such a good song. We just started, 1, 2, she counts it in. And so I wrote all of that, and I was like, oh, should I keep all this in? Because I'm doing this great analysis about sort of trauma and complex PTSD related to Penguin and Catwoman. And then there's me on the trampoline. And then I realized, oh, they're all freaks, beautiful freaks. And so am I. So it all fits, right? We're all freaks born of CPTSD, and that works. So what if I could just allow that to keep going and keep being? And then I did. And then I allowed that for all of the chapters. And what emerged was the stories that needed to be told in each sequel. Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be given a press release from you, and I know you, and I was reading in equal measure with joy and delight and just admiration for your bravery, because it takes a lot to put it. I mean, it takes a lot to even tell the story to yourself, let alone to share the story with other people. So it's a gift that you're giving us. I feel like let's come back to restorying, because I want to get a bit deeper on the kind of narrative restorying. I think the most important question is that is going to get answered this evening is, what would you say to somebody who says Grease is better than Grease 2? See? Controversial.
It is. And I'm for controversy. What I would say is Grease is wonderful. It's iconic. It's John Travolta. It's Olivia Newton-John. It's iconic. It's great. But it's not Grease 2. Grease 2 is not just a gender... show of hands in this room. Who has seen Grease 2? Excellent. Very good. So you feel me on this. It is not just a gender reversal story, but it is a female empowerment story. Michelle Pfeiffer kisses who she wants when she wants.
So
right?
queer.
It's so queer. It's so great. And I had the opportunity to interview 3 of the T-Birds from Grease 2. And one of them, Leaf Green, who plays Davy Jaworski, he's the little one, is openly queer and was during filming, and just talked about the queerness of the character and the unapologetic queerness of it. And he doesn't end up with, he sort of ends up with Dolores at the end, but not really. And you see him, they all jump off of a trampoline during the end credits in the freeze frame. I always want that. Can that happen in every single movie? But everyone's jumping off as couples in the freeze frame, and Davy is just by himself. And I love it because, right, he's jumping off into the wild unknown. I asked him, I said, where do you think that, you know, your character and Dolores would be now? What happened to them? And he said, well, I would have gone off to the Stonewall riots and just been a part of like queer liberation. And I'm like, I love that. What about Dolores? He was like, she would be too, because she would also be openly queer because she has a lot of gender bending in her character as well. So I just love that. I mean, I'm going into like the sort of queerness of it, but there's a lot of subversive elements to Grease 2 that aren't in Grease. And it's not just a gender reversal story. Also, the T-Birds in Grease 2 are like complete doofuses. And like the pink ladies just are in charge. They're fierce, they're powerful, they're embodied, they're all of it. And there's a lot of like wonderfully bad songs. And a lot of them have to do with like sexy topics, reproduction, Score Tonight, Do It for Our Country. Those are sexy, sexy songs. And very corny and very cheesy and unapologetic. And I love it. And when I saw it on TV, so it came out the year I was born, 1982. And it was a flop. It did not do very well. Sequels often don't do very well in general, but it came out in 1982. And it was a flop because it opened on the same day. I learned this from Maxwell Caulfield. It opened on the same day as E.T. Right? There's no chance. How can you compete with that? So people didn't go to see it. The other problem that happened was it opened during the summer. And as you've just heard me read, the whole opening segment is about them going back to school again. Well, in the height of the summer, people don't want to watch movies about going back to school. They want to go back into summer. So it's like a disaster. All of these things are, you know, circumstances under which it did not do well. But it developed a cult following that started around the time when I saw it, which was when it was playing a lot on TV. It was like a syndication type of a thing. And I remember I was in Atlanta with my family. I've got family in the South, and I was in Atlanta, and they were about to go to dinner, and I was flipping through channels, and I saw this very sad-looking, beautiful man sitting in a cafeteria with like what looked like plastic food on his plate, and he was singing a song called Charade, and he was very sad, and he was talking about, you know, behind my charade, you can't see or feel the real me. And I, as this young queer kid with like shoulder pads, what was I wearing? Shoulder pads with jeweled buttons. I was basically mimicking my mom, I guess. I don't know how all that happened with my outfit. I had like my hair spritzed and like my bangs, and it was a whole look. And I was like, oh, right, the real me. Who is the real me? I was identifying with his loneliness, with his otherness, with what he was singing about. And I didn't know what it was. And I remember going into my uncle's, you know, lazy boy recliner and trying to find the TV guide, flipping through, and then realizing, oh, this is Grease 2. I didn't know what it was. And then I missed dinner because I stayed and watched the movie. And then I had my mom drive me to the nearest rental store so I could get it and rent it and watch it over and over and over again. And it became such a comfort to me. And it was such a comfort that I recorded it on a little cassette tape, just the audio. Did anyone ever do this? Did you ever do this? And then you like have it in your Walkman, so I could literally take it with me and listen to it, like at school, or, you know, just sneak it in wherever we needed to have a little light Grease 2 pick me up. And then I could just have it literally with me all the time. And it was that sort of like a teddy bear, right? Like a blanket, like a pacifier, a transitional object, an object that transitions you from the thing you love and that provides comfort to the outside world. And so it was my teddy bear. What about you? What's your experience with Grease 2? How did it come into your life?
Well, I would agree with you that Grease 2 is the better of the 2 movies.
That's correct.
That was on condition of me being here. I had to say that. And I also genuinely believe that to be true. I think for me, I saw it when it later on as well. Like I had fully come out, whatever that means, into myself by the time I saw it. Grease 1 was actually the moment when I got the tingle down where you get the tingles, and I was like, oh. I don't think I'm like all of the other people that like the people that they like, and so that was Grease was my awakening. Grease 2 was my coming home, and I think it was the Girl for All Seasons that I'm an Enneagram 3. For those of you that know what that means, it means I like to be a bit of a chameleon. I'm like, who do you need me to be right now? And the Girl for All Seasons is exactly that. And I was like, oh, I wonder who, I want to be a girl for someone's all seasons. And so it was a really important film to me. And I disagree with you that there's no bad songs in Grease 2. I don't know where you say there's some bad songs in Grease 2.
Well,
I feel a little bit offended.
No, well, it's like they're all terribly wonderful. That's what I mean.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
terribly
I'm with
wonderful.
you. I'm back on board.
Okay, good.
I'm back in the room. We're
back
good.
in the room. I think every sequel that I cover in this book, aside from maybe Karate Kid 2, which is probably just a great film, but all the rest of them are terribly wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They're terribly wonderful. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. The Secret of the Ooze, you have to say that when you say it, is pretty bad. Yeah. But it's wonderful. Yes. You know, it's wonderful. Mannequin 2, On the Move, you have to say On the Move, is wonderful. And it's really bad.
I think I also just want to, just acknowledging our audience, I just want you to know that a cassette is... A cassette is something that happened, it's like a hard copy of an MP3. And a Walkman is a device that you put that in and you could carry it around with you, which is why it was called a Walkman, because patriarchy.
Right.
And then you put headphones on that with the things that came before earpods.
Thank you.
That's what important. Em was talking about, just in case anyone got lost.
Yeah, that's important.
I'm also really curious, because they always say, never meet your heroes. And this book is jam-packed full of interviews. And what nobody in this room knows, that in the Audible version of Em's book, I get to play an interview character. But this book is littered with interviews from stars from the movies, and you got to meet them, whether it either in person or online. And I wonder what that process was like for you and how that altered your relationship to the movies.
That's such a great question. Well, as I said, I realized that I wanted to do all the things in this book. And those of you who know me know that I really love to do all the things. And so I thought, okay, it is a book with a psychological analysis component. It is a pop culture critique book. It is a memoir, but also I want to talk to these people who I love so much and who I grew up with. They were like surrogate caregivers to me in a way because of the movies that they were in. And so I've never done celeb interviews before. I didn't know what I was doing. And what I did was with the help of a friend who gave me some information about how to find people, I just wrote to them. And I said, hi, this is me. I'm doing this thing. What do you think? And people responded. And I couldn't believe, like, here I am 40 years old and I'm sitting in an RV in my BFF's like driveway and I'm talking to Maxwell Caulfield on the telephone. My cool writer, also in Empire Records, he plays Rex Manning. Happy Rex Manning Day, anyone? And I thought, and I had this moment of like looking down on myself from above and going, I can't believe this is happening to me. And what would little M think about this moment? That little M would get to actually have a conversation with a cool writer and ask him questions and get to be even more immersed in a different way into this world. And the same thing happened with me with Stu Pankin. Stu Pankin is in Mannequin 2 On the Move. And he is the voice of dad dinosaur in that TV show Dinosaurs. Did y'all ever see that? Were they literally wearing dinosaur outfits, full dinosaur outfits? Anyway, and I talked to him. I can't believe they did that. And he's an incredible actor and character actor, and you would recognize him if you don't know who he is. But I was talking to him, and I just had this connective moment where I thought, oh, I feel like you're like my grandfather. Like he was so loving and so caring and so thoughtful in his answers, and he really just really wanted to tell me stories. And one of the things that was so cool is, so he plays the department store manager in Mannequin 2 On the Move. And he walks around. Anyone seen Mannequin 2 On the Move? Okay, a couple folks. What are you doing after this? You have assignments, including watching Mannequin 2 On the Move. But he walks around with his kind of like department store minions, and he says these repeating lines like, make a showplace of the workplace, and then they repeat it. Make a showplace of the workplace, and deplore neglect, demand respect, and then they repeat it. And my cousins and I, because we love Mannequin 2 On the Move, would go around and say those lines. And when I talked to him on the phone or on Zoom, he said, oh, I wrote those. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, I wrote those. I ad-libbed those interstitial interjections. And I just couldn't, I had this like, I just got tingles again thinking about it, like words that were kind of like phrases, lullabies, companion comfort for me as a kid. This person that I get to talk to, I get to know that he wrote them, that they came in from somewhere from him. And that is just incredibly powerful. I also had an out-of-body experience where I had an interview with Christine Ebersol, who's a Broadway goddess. Saw her, hello, yes. Saw her in Grey Gardens in 2007. Could not believe that she said yes to me being able to talk to her about being in My Girl 2. And if I may just share a story about My Girl 2.
It's your show, Em.
Okay, thank you. I'm also wearing a mood ring. Holler out to mood rings. But she shared with me that, so My Girl 2 is about Veda. Remember Veda Sultanfuss? Yeah, he can't see without his glasses. Thomas J's not in this movie, but Veda's journey in My Girl 2 is to find and learn about her mother because her mother died during childbirth. So she goes to LA and she has a whole adventure in LA. And the movie really is a sweet love letter to LA. And she learns all of these things about her mom, some of them beautiful and exciting and that help her create her own story of who she is, and some of them messy and complicated. But on the way, she has a surrogate mom who is Christine Ebersol and is a beautiful mother figure to Veda. And when I was talking to Christine, she said, the reason I said yes to doing an interview with you is because I became a mother during the filming of My Girl 2. And I had my baby on set with me. And it's this beautiful kind of synchronistic part about motherhood and themes of motherhood and who is a mom and what it means. And that's why it was meaningful to her and why she said yes. And so like, that's not something I would have ever have known. And also I can't believe I got to talk to, Edie Beale and from my Grey Gardens and on Broadway. It was incredible.
I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So I'm just mindful that we had the card that says 30 minutes left.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but that's fine.
So I want to return to some of the questions that we wrote down beforehand, if that's okay. And I noticed for myself when you talked about little Em, that my eyes filled with tears. Just the kind of tenderness of bringing little Em into the room and thinking about that kind of healing journey that little Em and capital S self M it is on. And so I want to like dig in a little bit to this, into some more of the psychology, if I can. And we're both psychotherapists, and we both appreciate the power of story and narrative in the way in which we go about living our lives in both an empowered and impoverished way.
Yeah.
And so, we'll talk a lot about restorying, and I wonder how much of that has happened for you, and how much intentionality was around restorying has gone into the book for your readers. So it's a bit about you and what's happened for you, but also what do you hope is going to happen for readers?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. Thank you. Well, to just say to all of you and those who are joining in by live stream who may have read some of the book or are thinking about reading the book, it's that question that I started with, which is what provides comfort for you? And where do you find yourself in that location? And how can you think back and bring in those memories and also what holds you in them? A lot of the book, the memoir parts are really hard and difficult times in my life. And I think going back to some of the trauma and some of the chaos and addiction and domestic violence and all of those parts that came up in the writing were really hard. Having the power to tell those stories through the things that provided me comfort, safety, containment, predictability, the returning characters, right? The kind of same story, but just a little bit different enough to package it in a new way was and is what makes sequels for me so transformative. And so, thinking even about the first chapter, which is The Great Muppet Caper, the holding environment that, was created by my grandmother who held me and took care of me when my mom wasn't able to for different reasons and my dad wasn't ever there. The holding environment that my grandmother created and also that Kermit created, yes, I went there, Kermit, to the rest of the Muppets is a beautiful parallel. And I had my own Kermit doll that I would hold on to and walk around with and do my little slide down those little slides, and that he was a good enough parent to, I'm doing Winnicott here, but okay.
Psychodynamics, everyone.
Okay, psychodynamics, but a good enough parent to the Muppets, holding them, containing them. Hey, Fozzie, it's okay. Don't worry. We're gonna get down from this balloon. It's okay. But he's imperfect. And so is my grandmother, and so is my mom. And so this idea of the parallel between that experience of the Muppets in a holding environment and my grandma and my mom, it's all there. And so telling these stories through the characters and through their stories has been really healing and really, really, really hard. And one of the things that I think as a therapist, I'm curious if this happens for you too, DDS, is when clients of mine say like, oh, I'm watching this show, da da da, or I'm reading this book, da da da, I always say, what is it? What are you reading? What are you watching? And that is an opening. There's an opening for a connection. There's an opening for a further expansion and a deepening into understanding what are the characters, what are you relating to, what's there for you, and just see what happens. And maybe it's nothing, right? Maybe it's like, I'm rewatching season 7 of Ink Master, which I'm prone to do. But even in that, why am I rewatching season 7 of Ink Master? Because there's a really beautiful moment of somebody getting tattooed and having a catharsis and having a beautiful transformative experience. And it speaks to me and it speaks to my heart. So asking about that matters. There's things that can come from it. How is that for you? I'm curious.
Yeah. It's definitely the opening that you talk about and the way of connecting and the way I think of helping, certainly in the way I practice therapy, that it allows the client or the patient to go, oh, wait, you watch TV as well? Or you read books too?
Right.
Or there's sentiment and nostalgia are important to you too. And then all of a sudden, what isn't being said can be said. I'm sitting here almost having a bit of I'm having this parallel process going on because I'm noticing that's what's happening between you and I. right now and with everybody that's either tuning in or sitting in the room is happening in the book too. So we are going in and out of humor and lightness, and then going to these tender kind of sacred spaces. And I'm really touched. Like I'm like, I didn't expect this to happen. And when I read the book on vacation, I noticed that as well. One moment I was laughing and going, yeah, Em, like right on, me too. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm experiencing my own healing in the book. And you've written that. It's a freaking masterpiece. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm thinking as well about the society that we, neoliberalistic kind of produce, consume, move on. The past is the past, like what's happening right now. It's the immediacy, all of that, particularly in America, particularly now. And yet you've written a book that is all about nostalgia. And you've written a book that is all about what happened back then, rather than what's going to happen, rather than what's happening here and now and what's going to happen out there. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about why is nostalgia so important? If it is important in your own practice as a therapist or in your life, what the role of nostalgia and yeah, I wonder if you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for what you just said too. That was really beautiful and sweet.
I meant it.
I know, I can feel it.
Yeah.
Y'all, I love nostalgia. I want to eat zebra cakes, Little Debbie zebra cakes, and Little Debbie Swiss rolls all the time. I still do. And Ritz crackers with squirt easy cheese. Because when I do, I know, I just want a buffet of that, because when I do, it takes me back to this time of comfort. And, you're right. The book oscillates between these moments that are hilarious and random and me dressing up as Catwoman, doing a trampoline routine to her. And then, living with domestic violence in my house and trying to escape that. And so nostalgia isn't always, for all of us, something that is a positive thing to return to. But my sequels are, and I think it's important. I also feel like, just zooming out for a bit, I feel like there's a pull to get out of digital things. Like we want to return to analog, like we want to just have like tangible books in our hands and not just ebooks or whatever. I think there's
Walkmans.
Walkmans, like just get that cassette tape going. Like I think there's like a lot of pull and drive for that, and I'm for it. And also 90s fashion is coming back, which I'm so excited by. I went to a show the other day and I was waiting in line. I was dressed up in some sort of femme outfit and I looked around and I was like, oh, every single person is wearing like something from like the Delia's catalog. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so great, but I'm out of place. But now I know this is what's cool now. It makes me so happy. The return. I think there's a power and a transformation in the return. And
say that again.
There's a power and a transformation in the return.
One more time.
There's a power and a transformation in the return.
Taking us to church.
Yes. And Stu Pankin, who I interviewed again, Dinosaur Dad, he said, I asked him a question about things he found comforting. I asked all the celebs that I interviewed what they found comforting, and he said, silly movies like Teacher's Pet. He listed a couple of older movies, and he said, the movies are really bad, but I saw them with my dad. And that's when my dad and I could have time together. And that's what I think about when I watch these movies, is that time that I had with my dad where it was just me and him. And that's the nostalgia that matters.
Yes.
And so thinking about that for us too, like what nostalgia matters for you, it's going to be different for all of us.
Yep. I want to ask a question that might feel a little bit dark.
Okay, great.
because one of the other things that I see you do in the book is critically engage with aspects of the sequels that wouldn't hold up today, such as reinforcing kind of problematic tropes in a similar bind that many Harry Potter fans find themselves in, right? Myself included, given the problematic views of the author of those books. I'm curious, Em, how you balance the joy and comfort that these films bring with the need to critically address the harmful narratives that they might sometimes perpetuate.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I think it's a huge problem. I mean, there's nothing that JK is saying that is okay at all.
Nothing.
The transphobia is rampant and horrible. And I'm not in the Harry Potter fandom, but I imagine you can, it's a both and, that both things could be true
Really
at the
complex.
same time.
Yeah.
And that we have to choose how we engage. And for me, it's about engaging critically all the time. So in every chapter, with every sequel, I'm engaging critically with it. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, starts with a fat phobic joke, which is inexcusable and not okay. And it's not like, oh, it was 19, whatever, that's okay. It's never okay. And it doesn't hold up. But as long as we're engaged with the critique, as long as we're engaged with the analysis of it, that's what matters. I teach a class here on Twin Peaks and depth psychology. Twin Peaks is another favorite show, Twin Peaks. And it's all about looking at it from, a feminist lens, from looking at it in white supremacist capitalist patriarchal lens that Bell Hooks brings in, and also loving the hell out of Twin Peaks at the same time, right? It's all of the above. It's looking at who's missing, what is the representation, and holding our love for those things and making choices about how we engage with them. And I recognize, as a white, cis-presenting, but genderqueer identified person who is able-bodied and college educated and many other things that I find comforting may not be comforting for other people. And I upfront say that in the book, and it's important to acknowledge it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. How do you hold that for yourself, either with Harry Potter or something else that you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a problem?
It was super hard for a while, because just with my own beliefs and my work, in social justice, and myself identifying as trans non-binary, I felt like I had to ignore a part of what I enjoyed for a long time. And I noticed how empty I felt without kind of like putting it to one side. And I had to reconcile within myself, how do I appreciate the art while at the same time acknowledging that the artist and I would probably not drink wine together.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So so that was a journey, and being able to hold the both and frame that you talked about, being able to hold both of those realities to be true, and allowing it to be complex and messy and a little bit fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh, am I allowed to swear? Too late.
I hope so.
Sorry. Yeah. Normally I don't mind, but because I'm on like live stream, I'm like, do I have to behave? Like,
no, you don't need to behave.
On my skirt, play with my pearls. So you're queer.
Yeah.
I'm queer.
Yeah.
Newsflash.
Newsflash.
You describe, I'm going to quote you on page 100.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Marinelli, 2024.
What did I say?
You describe some of these sequels as queer, empowering, and soothing. So in queer theory, there is a concept called queering, which at its kind of most foundational, in its most foundational sense, means like identifying the way in which there are counter narratives that call into question the kind of dominant social discourse. So can you expand a little bit here, Em, on how these sequels, which are often overlooked or dismissed, embody the act of queering comfort? Yeah.
Queering comfort. It just
I
sounds so good, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It sounds so
it does to me. I'm
good.
like, yeah,
It's
we'll have
just
some
like-
of that and some more.
Exactly. Like, oh, I want all of that. I want queering comfort.
As long as it come with Triscuits and
Yes.
cheese whiz.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Ritz crackers.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
my
okay.
bad,
It's
my
okay.
bad.
No, we'll work on it. Yeah, I think that so many stories in the sequels in my book are queering comfort in so many ways. I'd like to start with Miss Piggy. So Miss Piggy in The Great Muppet Caper. Anyone? Y'all into? Thank you very much. So Miss Piggy Miss Piggy is in jail at one point in The Great Muppet Caper. She was framed. Okay, we'll remember this. She was framed, and she's in jail, and they really need her. They really need her help to get it going here. They're at the Mallory Gallery. The bad guys are fighting, and there's no Miss Piggy because she's behind bars. So Miss Piggy, with her superhuman pig strength, takes the bars of the jail cell and bends them open, escapes, ends up in a truck. I think she like pulls someone over, drives like a big rig truck. Then like a motorcycle comes out of the truck. She suddenly knows how to drive a motorcycle. She gets on the bike. She goes exactly to the Mallory Gallery, zooms up to the top of the Mallory Gallery, and then descends into exactly where she needs to descend, on top of the bad guys, knocking them out and saving the day.
She's a bad bitch.
She is a bad bitch, and she is awesome. And that is an example of queering comfort. She is a female archetype pig who is not Kermit saving the day, right? Is not Gonzo saving the day, is not Fozzie saving the day. It's Piggy. It's Miss Piggy. And she had to do all of that on her own. And I see these themes in a lot of these sequels where there's a lot of like fierce female powerful characters. Catwoman is the same way in Batman Returns. She becomes like a feminist vigilante. She takes matters into her own hands, right? She moves from Selena Kyle to, she has to become Catwoman to do Catwoman's work because men aren't cutting it.
There's a line in Batman Returns, that made me want to be Catwoman.
What was it?
Meow.
I love it. Hell here. I mean, she is fantastic. And is she also troubled? And also there's some shadow parts of her that are there. Absolutely. But she is literally taking back the night. She like stops a rapist midway. I mean, she's incredible. These are examples of like ways in which dominant culture storylines are being absolutely queered and shifted in gorgeous, gorgeous ways. Even Veda, as the protagonist in My Girl 2, she's taking matters into her own hands to find out about her mom. She like basically manipulates a police officer to get an address that she needs of her mother's first husband and then goes there to meet him. She's a teenager. That is badass. Veda, get it, you know? And so that's all. There's this whole, a lot of stories in here are going against the grain, I think.
I mean, I think sequels in general, right? Like they are the often forgotten, often misunderstood, often don't perform that well.
Yes.
Rejects. Why would you watch those?
Right.
That's queer all over.
Thank you.
Right? That's queer all over. And that's the power that we have as queer people to go, yeah, but watch out, bitch, because we're coming. Right? Like that's right. I've just got another sign to say that we've got to finish talking in a moment. So two really light and fluffy questions.
Love it.
What is the sequel that hasn't been made that you wish had?
I love this. All of y'all think about that too. Despite what would you want? I think my answer is very time-stamped, but it's going to be Pretty in Pink 2. And but not now, but not made now, made, you know, a few years after Pretty in Pink was made. And I want to see, you know, this disastrous relationship with Ducky and Christy Swanson that goes off at the end of the first film. I want to see that disintegrate, and Molly Ringwald really coming to terms with the fact that she's meant to be with Ducky, even though there's codependency there. But anyway, the point is I want it to also be a musical. It's got to be a musical.
Mm.
And maybe some more members of the Brat Pack. We could bring those in as well.
Divine.
Yeah. Andrew McCarthy is just there for some reason.
Rob Lowe.
Yeah, Rob Lowe,
Rob
Demi
Lowe.
Moore, they're just there. St. Elmo's Fire is playing in the background. Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Wrong movie, doesn't matter. Something like that. How about you? What's a sequel that you would
Well,
like?
you know, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I want Grease 3 to be made. And the reason why I want Grease 3 to be made
That's a good
is
one.
because in your interview with Max Caulfield, he says that Grease 3 was going to be made and Kylie Minogue was going to be in it.
True.
And
I know. There's a lot of gay gasps that just happened, which I love.
I would be here for that. And I can't even tell you, I would lose my shit.
Uh-huh.
So last question from me at least before
Yeah,
we open it up,
sure.
is what can we expect from your creative genius next?
Goodness. Creative genius. Thank you for saying that. Well, I am currently co-authoring a book on trauma and Twin Peaks, the TV show Twin Peaks, which sounds really intense, but is really joyful because we're getting to go through the whole series and the prequel film and the return, which is season 3. And write about trauma from that perspective, and it's been really fun. I also have started writing comfort musicals, the sequel to Comfort Sequels, where I go through and have musicals for each chapter, and I'm starting on Oklahoma, which is, I have a lot to say because I'm from there, the musical, which is really strangely dark, actually. Like you're like, Oklahoma, the wind comes through down the plate, dark. Lots of stuff going on there. And then I have a little pipe dream project that I don't know if I can pull off or not, but I really want to do an oral history of the movie Trees Lounge, which is an old Steve Buscemi movie that he wrote and directed and starred in, and probably no one has seen. But I really want to do an oral history of that book.
Thank you.
Of that movie, yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the world needs more M.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think at this point we will open it up to, I think I'm going to be given an iPad with some questions on.
This was so fun. Thank you all for listening. Oh my goodness.
Can I just say as well, why is nobody talking about how to sit in a pleated skirt? I Googled it and it's like how to iron a pleated skirt. No one's saying how to sit in a pleated skirt. So I'm sorry if I'm sorry. Thank you. 1 through 6 or 1, 2, 3. Okay, got it. Thank you. That I can remember. M.
Yes.
Did you know when you started writing this book that it would also be a memoir? What is your biggest takeaway? What is your biggest takeaway about your life that upon reflection you have learned about yourself?
Whew.
It's a good question.
I did not know that it was a memoir. As I mentioned, I thought it was something completely different. And then I just allowed myself to lean into the fact that it was and accept that. And I'm so glad I did, because it became the book it needed to become because of that. I think I have learned that I am a work in progress, and that putting things into stories helped me really see the nature of the complex trauma that I've experienced. And that was powerful for me. And people have asked me, are you nervous about people reading the book? It's so personal. And are you nervous about your clients reading the book? And I was like, no, I haven't even thought of that. I said, I'm nervous about my dad reading it, because that was the most painful chapter, and it's still the most painful chapter in my life, is trying to reconcile my relationship with him. And the chapter that is about him is the never-ending story chapter, which is the never-ending story of trying to understand and figure out and reconcile my relationship with him, and radically accept that he will not be the person that I want him to be. And that is the practice of radical acceptance. Thank you, Marsha Linehan, and dialectic behavioral therapy. And that was a really powerful and painful part to write about. I just went there with that answer, didn't I?
You
I just
did.
dropped it.
You
I
really
was
did.
Mike dropped it.
But it also, what in your answer struck me, that radical acceptance doesn't mean no pain.
Exactly.
If I could drop the mic, I would.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a spiritual process that doesn't end. It's not like you're like, okay, I accept that. Let's move on. It's an ongoing spiritual practice of radically accepting that things are not, I have to accept things exactly how they are. And when I don't, I suffer.
Holy moly.
That's
Anyone
fun.
told you should be a therapist?
Nah,
Yeah, it's not for me.
not for me.
Question number 2. If you were stuck on a desert island with a solar panel,
Oh,
a VHS tape player,
yes.
that's the thing that we had to use before there was streaming.
Yeah.
An old TV, so
Uh-huh.
no flat screens,
Love it.
and could only have one comfort sequel to watch over and over again. I think I know the answer to this. I'm going to disallow the answer you're going to give.
Disallowing.
So if you could, so I'm going to embellish question number 2.
Okay.
I'm going to start again.
Okay, good.
If you were stuck on a desert island with a solar panel,
Got it.
a VHS tape player, and an old TV,
100.
and could only have one comfort sequel that isn't Grease 2 to watch over and over again,
Damn it.
which one would it be and why?
I really want to say 2 different ones, but I have to pick one. The answer would be Grease 2, but I think that my second answer would be Mannequin 2 on the Move, because like Grease 2, I also recorded it on a cassette tape and listened to it over and over again. And it really has the comfort sounds of my childhood, the dialogue, the lullabies. It is a teddy bear for me. And I can do all the dances. The answer is Mannequin 2 on the Move. What a great question. The other one was My Girl 2 because of the relationship with her mom and thinking about my mom. And that chapter is about my mom and my relationship to her, and how my relationship to my mom is changing as she's in early Alzheimer's now. And so it's a lot about memory and relationship. And so that would be my second answer. So it's a hard one. It's a really hard one. Great question. I love desert island questions.
So our third question is from Bowie.
Pose.
What was the most rewarding part of writing comfort sequels? Were there any moments that were particularly difficult to write?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Bowie, I couldn't have written the book without you. I met with Bowie every single week. Bowie has read this book inside and out in all different iterations, some of which were absolute shit. Thank you so much, Bowie.
Thank you, Bowie.
Yeah, Bose. The most rewarding, I feel like I'm thinking about the Evening Star chapter, Bowie, which is about my grandma E.T., who is a character, y'all. Character. What was rewarding was feeling like I was coming to a lot of connections and almost like closures with certain relationships of people who aren't here anymore. Like sort of inviting them in and bringing them back in, engaging with them, and then closing it back down has felt really rewarding to me. And Grandma E.T. was one of them. She was a caregiver to me when my parents weren't able to do that. And she was also, you know, an alcoholic, and she had a lot of other problems, but she was so loving and sweet to me. And she took me to see The Evening Star in the movie theater. It was $1 movies. And has anyone seen The Evening Star? What even is The Evening Star? Cassidy, okay, good. The Evening Star is the sequel to Terms of Endearment. Did anyone even know they had a sequel to Terms of Endearment? Not one person. And we went to see it at the $1 movies, and it's about a complicated mother, a narcissistic, complicated mother and grandmother. And so there's all these beautiful parallels with my relationship to Grandma E.T. and her daughter. And I think so that comes to mind with that question, Bowie, about what is rewarding is bringing these people back in, engaging with them, and then kind of closing down, making these connections to both psychological concepts, but also the movies, the nostalgia. But I got to go see it with her, drinking our Diet Dr. Pepper. Diet Dr. Pepper was so good, and it
Delicious.
tasted terrible, but it was so good.
Yeah, it still does
they
taste
make it
terrible.
still?
Yes, they do.
Oh gosh,
I
it's
have
still
some-
terrible.
I have some tins in my fridge at home, and it is still terrible.
It is. So good.
Fabulously terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. The book, for obvious reasons, is very focused on 80s and 90s sequels. Often ignored is a term that's been tossed around.
Mhm.
How do you approach the changes in this over the last 20 years, where we are now at a point where basically everything is a sequel?
There's so many remakes and sequels, and I'm thinking about like the Marvel universe, and I can't speak on the Marvel universe, but that feels like more stories, and more stories. And I love more of things. Give me more of things. What is that? Let's make more of it. And I know that sounds just like gross consumerism, and I can hold that. It's a both and. But I want to see the continuing story. I want to see the same characters come back and do new things. I want the more. And so I feel though like the more now is, and there's a beeping going on outside if people can hear it, but I feel like the more now is a different kind of more than the sequels that I'm speaking about here, including just moving into digital, the digital world. You know, all these sequels are like made on film. They're like movies, you know, like, and the quality of them, yes, they're terrible, but they're cinematically speaking, they're beautiful. They represent something really different. They are time stamped in a certain way. And so, yes, generally give me more of anything, more zebra cakes, more of this, more of that. And also the quality of these films feel very different to me. I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question. If you want to do is have thoughts on that.
No?
No, it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it answers the question. You answered the question.
Mm.
It's your answer. I'm not going to sit here and correct it or perfect it or give another, like, why would I do that?
I think also, just to say something about the Muppets, you know, the Muppets aren't really sequels when you think about it, because they're each is an individual story. So it's not like a continuing story. And so they're not really a sequel. Whoops. So there's things in here that might not technically meet that branding. And I'm okay with that.
It's your book.
Yeah.
You get to write it.
That's right. Yeah.
Our fifth question. Wow. Take a deep breath.
Okay.
Did you ever feel shame or get shamed for wanting to watch the same movies again and again? If so, how did you move past it?
That is such a great question.
Really is a good question.
It really is. And some people in the audience, you might feel the same way if you're listening to the same thing over and over again or whatever. I think that as a kid, I was left alone so much with a single working mom and being emotionally neglected from my father, that I could really watch whatever I wanted to watch. And I did over and over again. And I don't really think anyone was paying attention. I mean, my mom was okay, like, we're going to eat tuna now. Like there was that, but I was always allowed to just keep rewind, play. And even now, like all day today, all I've done is listen to Chappell Roan. Like that's it. over and over and over again. I mean, right? Isn't she so good? And I still do that. I still find the comfort in the same thing over and over again. Like I can't, like if you could look at my Apple thing about how many times I've listened to Sabrina Carpenter's Please, 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 like it could be embarrassing. But I feel so embracing of the intensity with which I consume things and watch them over and over again. I've watched the first and second season of Heartstopper more times than I could admit.
Such a good show.
It's such a good show. Add
Such
to
a good
cart,
show.
everyone. Heartstopper. Season 3 is coming out October 3rd. And I feel okay. I feel fine about it. I don't feel like I've been shamed around it. I feel okay about it. Yeah.
Good for you. I've
Thank
led
you.
an entire 3-hour class on a 3-minute scene from Heartstopper.
You did?
It's again, like if you haven't watched these sequels, watch them.
Yes.
If you haven't watched Heartstopper, watch it.
Mm.
If you
Yes.
take nothing, take that.
Yes.
We've got 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Perfect. Wait, what scene from Heartstopper did you show?
It was the one when Charlie is and Nick,
Uh-huh.
they're in, I think it's Nick's bedroom, and Nick's on the bed and Charlie's sitting on the floor, and Charlie starts to open up about his eating challenges and just starts to open up. And Nick, the empathy that Nick shows, there's a wonderful quote from Carl Rogers, who is the founder of person-centered therapy. And I'm not going to get the quote quite right, but it's along the lines of, when someone hears you, when someone truly listens, without trying to fix you, without trying to mold you, without trying to shape you, without trying to change your mind, it feels damn good. When I have been listened to, things that seem insoluble become soluble. Things that seem fixed and stuck become flowing. And I can perceive my world in a new way and move on. And that's what Nick did in that moment, was he just moved down the bed and sat next to Charlie and did nothing more than sit there.
That's right. And
held, and you know, when therapists are beginning their training, we talk a lot about holding space and empathy, and everyone's like, what do you mean holding space? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? So I played that scene, and like, that's an example, not the example, but that's an example of holding space.
It is. His presence is so palpable and gorgeous.
Goosebumps.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, we've had an influx.
Oh, good, great, exciting.
I don't know if we're going to get all through them all.
Okay, that's great.
It's exciting. What was most surprising to you in the process of writing this book?
I think what was most surprising is that I could write a book. Because I've never written a book before. And I wasn't sure that I could do it. And when I broke it down and I thought, these are just essays about movies that I love, then it all came together. And like I said, when I leaned into the fact that it was a memoir, then it came together. But I think that was the most surprising, that I could actually do it.
You did it.
I did it. And that I did it really honestly. With some creative nonfiction flourishes, of course, but like, I really did it. I was very honest and real in telling these stories. And when you read it, which everyone read it, you'll see what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Question from Patrick. Diet Dr. Pepper is still good. Fact.
I love you, Patrick.
What are your thoughts on prequels? Do they provide anything different for you or for us from sequels or franchises?
Oh, beautiful question. Yes, I love prequels. Absolutely. Give me a prequel. Give me a backstory any day. Again, I want the more. What is the more? I want to know character origin stories. I want to know how things came to be. You know, I think one of my favorite prequels is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which is the film that came after the TV show, but is the prequel, and it's the last week of Laura Palmer's life. And it's an incredible prequel. And just generally speaking, I'm for them. Great question. What are some of your favorite prequels? Do you know them? What prequels do you love? House of the Dragon? Yeah, it's a prequel to Game of Thrones. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Rish gives thumbs up to that. I think that prequels, when done well and holds the integrity of the franchise, that's what I would say. It's got to hold the through line of the franchise. You're laughing at me. It does. It has to. Otherwise, it's not going to work, you know? And I would say too, I'm back to sequels now, but one of the greatest sequel that is continuing today is Cobra Kai. Okay, Cobra Kai holds the integrity of the Karate Kid franchise so beautifully. And if you've never seen any of the Karate Kid movies and you just watch Cobra Kai, that's also great. It holds its own, but it weaves and it brings in characters. My Karate Kid 2 chapter is all about Kumiko. Kumiko is played by Tamlin Tomita, and she is fantastic. And she comes back in Cobra Kai. She's there in the movie in Karate Kid 2. This is off topic. I'm sorry. In Karate Kid 2, she does this beautiful dance, and Karate Kid 2 is made by a lot of white people, and they asked her to do this Oban dance. And so she does the dance, and then it was just some made up dance that they had her do. Okay. It's disgusting. It's racist. It's problematic. In Cobra Kai, she actually went to Japan, trained in the traditional art of Oban dance, and then does it correctly the way it's meant to be done in Cobra Kai. That is a beautiful representation of correction. That's all from her. That came from her. Anyway, I get very passionate about Tamlin Tomita, and it's not related to the question. Sorry.
It's your show.
Go watch Cobra Kai.
Another question has come in. I think I'm just gonna keep us going until somebody gets one of those crooks out and pulls me off stage. How do you feel about Beetlejuice 2?
Oh, I'm excited to see Beetlejuice 2. Has anyone seen it? Is it out yet? No, not yet. Is it October probably? The day after my birthday. Oh my goodness. Lindsay, I love that you know my birthday. So it's coming really soon. I am so excited because I feel like it's holding the integrity, right? It's got Michael Keaton. It's got Winona. I feel like it's going to do what it needs to do. So I'm for it. I'm also for Beetlejuice musicals. I'm for all musicals pretty much.
Last question.
Yes.
With today's media focusing on short clips and fast-paced movies,
yeah.
How do you think our ability to feel and connect with nostalgia will evolve?
Oh my gosh. Whew. It feels like things are fleeting. Things come into TikTok and they fleet. They just go. So it's hard to say what nostalgia that's happening now will hold in 20 years. I can't think on that. Really. But when I see clips of things like someone doing a skip it, do y'all remember skip its? Okay, bruising ankles since 1990, whatever. Or like things that bring me back to that certain time, that immerse me in, bubble tape. Remember bubble tape? That is so gross that you would unveil and then you would eat the tape, or Squeeze-Its. Remember the Squeeze-Its? What were we eating? Did I eat any actual food? I don't know. But when I see things like that, or little commercials or things like that on YouTube, I am taken back. I am into the nostalgia when I see a preview for a movie that I love or something like that, or a sequel. I am taken back. But I am curious, and I don't know what that will look like in 20 years. It's hard to guess.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. And I'm curious how people experience these sequels now, because they're much slower moving than what we're used to. Everything is so fast paced now, right? You watch a movie now and it's like, sometimes I'm like dizzy. I'm like, wait, what's happening? You know, and even something like Ghostbusters 2, like the pink slime is very slow moving. And I'm like, this is meditative pink slime that's going through the sewer system of New York. And so it's just a very different, slower paced, nostalgic analog world that I am all about and for, and I don't know how it will. The answer is I don't know.
I love that the last question was an unanswerable question. And weirdly, for my neurospicy brain, I'm okay with an open loop, which
like
is
that.
very strange for me. Okay, well, we'll wrap there, Em.
That sounds great.
I so enchanting. Thanks for putting this out into the world. Thanks for sharing yourself with the world. It's important and needed. And thanks for bringing this group of people together. Yeah, I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for everything. This is wonderful. Yay.